Here we are, August 2020. It's summer of love, right? It's the summer of love at a distance. Well, our theme this month is inclusion in action. And today, my talk is let's get together and feel all right in consciousness. So this month, we open our minds to how central our principle of oneness calls us together in a state of diversity, and how the energy of inclusion helps us live out this oneness. Oneness does not mean sameness, and unity does not mean uniformity. As a matter of fact, it's important for us to be who we are individually to fill in all the pieces of the puzzle. So the divine intelligence, the source of all that is, manifests itself in, through, and as each diverse form and individualization of itself, empowering expressions of imagination and our creative power. We are immersed in the divine. And actually, I would go further to say, we're not just immersed in the divine, but we are the divine in form. This idea of oneness, the oneness of God, is not a philosophy of absorption. We do not become absorbed in the universal self to the loss of the individual, quite the opposite. We find ourselves not absorbed, but immersed in a universality, each one being a unique individual and different manifestation of that which itself is just one, undivided, indivisible, and whole. We cannot think of spirit as static, but as forever unfolding its divine nature. The divine is inclusive of diversity. That's actually how it works. It needs us to be different for it to express completely, confirmation of which is self-evident. We naturally are inclusive when we are recognizing the diversity all around us. Doesn't mean we have to agree or disagree. It just we have to observe with love. Remember that? Respond with love, our bumper sticker. You guys still got those on your cars, I hope? Well, though we each have preferences, we are each unified in the energy of the one source, and therefore inclusion is the essence of who we really are. Truly, there is only one of us here. God, in its countless forms, showing up as the seat you're sitting in. Eckhart Tolle wrote in Oneness with All Life, be aware that what you think to a large extent creates the emotions that you feel. See the link between your thinking and your emotions. Rather than being your thoughts and emotions, be the awareness behind them. I love that. Be the awareness behind the emotion. So I invite you to examine your beliefs from a stance of self-observation. This will help us become more aware of all the thoughts and ideas that no longer serve us or others. When we can take a look at what we're thinking and why. A lot of times before I was conscious, I would just come up with emotion and it would carry me away into another cause of the cause of the cause. The reason why something happened, you know, we ask the reason, why? Why did they do that? And I would ask you to look further in what it means. Not the who did what to who, but what is the meaning behind what happened? What's the big picture? This self-observation is the beginning steps for our self-transformation. See, if we don't know, we can't change it. If we think that the world is just happening to us, then we're just a victim of that. But when we realize that the world is happening through us because of the attitudes and the energy that we hold as the observer, and we can change that point of observation, that's where everything changes. You see, you and I, we can't change anyone. Only ourselves. We can change someone. One person. You can change you. I can only give you the tools and the insight for you to change yourself. Because all change comes from within, Sensei. Becoming self-conscious reveals itself as inclusion in action and demonstrates our oneness. So, inclusion in action. What a time to have this wonderful conversation about being inclusive with everything that we run up against, be it your political party, your sexual orientation, the color of your skin, and the rights of who can vote and who shouldn't vote, and all of that. So let's get together in consciousness and feel all right. You know, when we're confronted with exclusion, we want to combat it. We want to match that energy and go, you know what, that's not right. We want to get angry. And there's a place for that. But we need to hear people out. And we need to get to the reason that people feel the way they do. So I've come up with the following 3 points that have given me some insight that I'd like to pass on to you. And it's 3 points about inclusion. So the first one is being mindful. Mindfulness. This is that observing the observer. Mindfulness is the ability to become the observer of your thoughts. We need to begin separating unconscious prejudice that we may be embodying. We need to begin exploring and allowing the habitual ideas we hold as true to be informed by the divine with a capital T truth, and allowing the awareness of inclusion to be the natural expressions of ourselves. I've given this sample before, but it just rings true to me that when I start to look at why I believe what I believe, there's usually a story attached to it of some incident that made me look at it from a personal observation point. And I love to use my good childhood friend, Stevie Gruber, from down the street when I was growing up. And Stevie loved the Green Bay Packers. And as a good friend, he taught me how to love the Green Bay Packers. He had his room all set up with all the pictures of all the players, never missed a game. And so I adopted the Green Bay Packers as my favorite team because it was his favorite team and he was my best friend. Now, he was actually from Wisconsin. So his belief was rooted in where he grew up, but mine was rooted in what I believed about him. And I didn't realize this for years until somebody asked me, well, are you from Green Bay, Wisconsin? Is that why you like the Packers? And I had to think about and trace back the history of why I believed that. And I realized that I loved it because good old Stevie Gruber from down the street loved Green Bay. Now, I had fallen so much in love with Green Bay that I still love the Green Bay Packers. But I have other favorite teams too, like the Wolfpack. Go Wolfpack. But we need to look at why we believe what we believe. Trace back the thread of your political party, possibly. Is it what your parents or your neighbors or your teachers believed? Or is it something that you have decided on your own? And I don't say this in any judgment, just to find out why we believe what we believe. You know, I went through a phase where there are certain foods I didn't like. And as growing up, you know, didn't want to have anything with fruit, you know, or seeds in it, because I had to trace that back too. I didn't like fruit with seeds in it because I had an experience where I choked on a seed. I didn't realize that until I started eating really good fruit. And I loved the fruit, and I realized that I hadn't really tasted it because I had never tried it because it had a seed in it. And then I realized that all fruit had seeds, and that's a whole other story. I digress. So back to my talk. Can we begin releasing what does not serve the greater good? We have to understand if it serves the greater good or not. But in some way, us working this out is serving the greater good. Everything that we're going through right now is serving the greater good in some way. We just haven't figured it all out yet. And we may never figure it all out. But we have to lean on what we believe. This takes a period of self-realization and the ability to admit when we are wrong. There's the rub. There's where the rubber meets the road, isn't it? To admit when we were wrong. Ouch. What? I could not be wrong? What? Let me rethink this. Can we do this? Can we admit when we have gone down the path of not eating fruit because it had a seed in it and go, you know what? I'm going to try different fruit now because I'm not afraid of the seeds anymore. Yes, we must, in order for us to be transformed by the renewing of our minds, we must renew our beliefs. And we have to look at why we believe what we believe. Is there a certain segment of humanity that has been excluded for some reason? And when we separate, we get further and further away from our oneness. But we're here to call each other back. So again, we must admit that sometimes our thinking is wrong. And we must, in order for us to be transformed by the renewing of our minds, we must be willing to admit when we were wrong. So that's mindfulness. The second idea is apply conscious effort. Effort. Ooh, means we got to roll up our sleeves and we have some work to do. Applying conscious effort is to recognize bias and find opportunities to practice inclusion. And examples might be attending a Diversity Inclusion Commission webinar, reading books on the subject, or reaching out within our own community. See, we need to discover why we believe what we believe and be willing to change it. And the third aspect is set an intention. Set an intention to be inclusion inaction. We must be willing to learn new things and be able to provide opportunities to be inclusive. Invite the people that challenge you into your group. Yeah, challenging, that one. But if we just surround ourselves with yes people that always agree with us, the person that holds the no or the different point of view holds part of the piece of the puzzle that you may not have been willing to look at, that may hold the answer for you. You know, whenever I'm on a committee, I mean, I've been on church boards for, I can't remember not being on a church board for over 25 years now. But what I found is the person that I most disagree with is the person I want to hear from the most, because I want to know why. I want to know why they feel the way they do. I'm not here to convince them of my way, but I want to understand what they're thinking so that I can see the big picture. Because if I surround myself with people who only say, oh yes, absolutely, you're always right, which is not the truth, I have been wrong. Just ask my girlfriend, Chris. No, don't ask her, forget. But we have to admit when we're wrong and say, you know what? We were wrong on that. And I'm willing to learn more. See, it's about education. It's about being open at the top. That's what this teaching represents. It's not that we just shut down once we open our consciousness. Every day, we as students of truth must be willing to hear everyone's point of view. That's what inclusion is all about. So inclusion takes practice. We were not born believing in exclusion. It's a learned trait. To unlearn something, we must first be aware that it has become part of us. Identify it, and then change our thinking at the root of our belief. Change our thinking at the root of our belief. Just like why you believe in the Green Bay Packers, or why you believe fruit is not good for you because it has seeds, which is not the truth. Or why a certain segment of society has been excluded to the conversation. It's time to open that conversation up at the top and listen closely to what is being said behind the words. It's possible that someone has been living in fear of a belief so long that it has become part of their energy, which can at times be very difficult to identify and change. But anything is possible when we put our mind to it, right? Ernest Holmes wrote in this thing called You, I am guided by the same intelligence and inspired by the same imagination which scatters the moonbeams across the waves and holds the force of nature in its grip. How powerful is that? That is the same power each one of us has access to, but it's only ours when we act the part. We are only divinely guided when we believe in our divinity. So in conclusion, set an intention to be inclusive and focus on opportunities to do so, knowing that which you resonate to is revealed through the law of mind. Be open to new ideas. Don't exclude anyone. And if you find yourself being excluding, being in the energy of exclusion, Look at it. Question it. Why is that? Why is it that I don't like that they believe that? Let's all make an effort to unite in active listening. Now's the time to listen, not to talk over each other. Conscious communication and becoming comfortable with being uncomfortable is how we release the energy around this transformation, to fulfill the intention, to put inclusion into action. So let's become receptive to change. Let's change our thinking through changing our awareness and changing our lives as a result. And so it is. Namaste. Well, it's time for us to go into prayer right now. So I invite you to close your eyes if that's comfortable for you, or take a soft focus on something in your home or something out the window that will allow you to go deeper at this time. Let's follow our teaching and remember who we are. For each one of us is divinely connected. There is a power that guides the stars, causes the sun to shine, that grows the grass and leaves the trees. I know that that same energy of animation is breathing our bodies, is beating our heart, is digesting our food, and doing this all at the same time in everyone's life. And I know that we are unified in that field of all opportunity, for truly there is only one of us here, as the countless forms that the divine has created for it to express fully. So I speak a word of inclusion. As we knock down the walls of separation, as we begin to repair the ideas about being better than, or greater than, or different than, when we can see the divinity within all situations, all challenges, and be inclusive of the observer behind the observer, and knowing that that observer is the one. As we unite with that energy, the healing begins to take place. The releasing of what no longer works, the ideas that no longer serve us, begin to slip into the nothingness from which they came. For when light is presented in the darkness, lightness is available to all. And as we enlighten up, a healing begins to happen right here and right now. So I speak a word for all of the first responders, all of the people on the front line, all of the people that are walking through this challenge. I pray for the families who hold their loved ones so dear, and that energy of love permeates all time and space, and healing is happening. We may not understand it, but I have to know that that within me that knows that it knows what the heck it's doing in this. So I call in the healing and the revealing of truth in this time, in this situation, knowing that as we turn away from the challenge, not to deny it, but not to feed it any more divisive energy, our inclusion, our remembering of our wholeness and our oneness begins to transform this world of form into the healing and revealing center that we choose to know that it truly is. Nature has a way of knowing how to walk us through it. And when we give ourselves over completely, that energy of what you believe the creative energy is gets to begin doing its healing work. And it is beginning to do its healing work right here and right now. Actually, it's never not been doing its healing work. But as we become aware of the healing begins to open our consciousness to a new level of conscious awareness. And as we spring into that energy catapulted into the fourth dimension, healing is all that is. Any challenge we see is part of the healing. We have to know that something wonderful is happening by means of each of us, no matter what the appearance. So I give great thanks. So blessed. My heart is filled with gratefulness for this teaching, for the healing, for the challenges. Yes, I give thanks for the challenges, for they move us into a new awareness. And I give thanks for all the triumphs of learning how to use this energy in a productive and loving way. So I let go. I release this word into the living, loving law of mind, completely letting go, knowing it is already so. And in that knowing, the universe responds by miracles, blessings, and transformation. So I let go and I let God be God in our world, in our hearts, and in our lives, as we affirm it together by saying, and so it is. Amen.